After being canceled last year due to COVID, the iconic Southeastern Wildlife Exposition is returning for its 40th year this February. Today, I talk one-on-one with the Executive Director of SEWE, John Powell, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. John Powell, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Hey, Quintin, it's good to see you again.
Likewise, I know that you obviously are the Executive Director of the Southeastern Wildlife Exposition, which will happen this year from February 17th to the 20th.
Correct.
And this year is a milestone for you all. 40 years in Charleston.
It's our 40th year. It's hard to believe.
Yes, sir. Hard to believe. What else is going to your mind emotionally?
I think you look at it from a show perspective. A lot of people have been involved from the start through now. I've worked with some great staff members, and you look at it personally too, how long I've been involved, which is almost 17 years now. So when you're involved that long in an event like this, you take everything very personally. You rise and fall in the success of the event. So while we were unable to have one in 2021, this year feels very much like a celebration on so many levels. So I guess the short of it is, I think it'll be a very emotional year for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And this might be a redundant question, John, but you said that you've been here as Executive Director for 17 years. What is the biggest difference from 17 years ago to right now about this festival?
Well, just for clarification, I haven't been Executive Director that long, but I've been involved in the organization in one way, shape, or form.
Yes, sir.
I think growth is certainly something that people notice. When you look at the number of exhibit sites we have, the number of participating artists and exhibitors, and the number of participating attendees, that's changed a lot over 17 years. While we are an event and while we are not for profit, words, like change and innovation are part of what we try to do. We try to keep the core of the festival familiar for folks, and it always will center around wildlife and sporting art. But we try to offer new events. We try to evolve. A lot of our growth is mirrored the growth and success of the city of Charleston, and in large part is due to that. So, we hope that over 17 years, that if you were here 17 years ago, you see a lot of things that are familiar, but every year that we can surprise you with something new on a small or large scale.
What is the core of SEWE?
So it started with wildlife art, and that's sometimes people miss that. Sometimes people just see the outdoor events and think that that's the dog demonstrations and birds of prey, flight demos, etc. are what we are. When really we have over 100 national or international wildlife artists here every year. Each one brings a body of work, and we have a featured artist every year. But painters, sculptors, carvers, and historically, and again in this year, Charleston Place will be the host of our fine art gallery, where all those artists will be present, and they represent the core, and everything is built out from there. Whether it's conservation organizations, guides, outfitters, sporting pursuits, and some things are loosely related to wildlife and sporting art. It's a lifestyle show as well. But yeah, to repeat myself, wildlife art is and will always be the core of the Southeastern Wildlife Exposition.
What is lifestyle art to you?
Lifestyle art?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think, wildlife art, is really the core, but I think, when I say we're a lifestyle show too, those that enjoy the outdoors, sporting pursuits, maybe we dress the same from time to time in a barber coat and that sort of thing. It's easy to stereotype, but, really we incorporate all sorts of individuals that enjoy, whether it's camping, hiking, fishing, hunting, and then again, it falls back into there's some people that are here just because they love wildlife art.
Absolutely, that's amazing. How has SEWE's growth mirrored the city of Charleston's growth?
I think you just see that the more opportunity. There a lot of folks that have moved here that have never been part of SEWE before. And we have this extremely loyal attendee base. So really, once someone comes, there's a very high percentage chance they're going to come every year. And so, especially those new people moving to town, when you see new growth, but building growth, people have new wall space. And they want to fill those walls with original wildlife art, and a lot of times. And I just think, the spotlight that is on the city of Charleston, puts some on us as well. And then that's also part of our mission. When we advertise, when we market the Southeastern Wildlife Exposition, we're also doing that. We're also showcasing the city of Charleston. So it's a very close relationship.
Yes, indeed. How do you market the Southeastern Wildlife Exposition these days?
Well, as in a very broad or general answer, I'd say that we've moved online. We built a new website 2 years ago, and that's always evolving. But we advertise on a national level in art-specific publications, lifestyle publications, conservation organizations also work with us to do that on a national level, and then much more regionally in publications, radio, television, through cable system connections that we have. And then locally, you'll see the standard billboards and local partners. And again, these, whether it's the Post and Courier or the City Paper, and these local publications, or then you have Garden and Gun magazine, which has grown exponentially over the years. We have these great relationships with the individuals that work there. And so whether it's from an editorial standpoint or advertising standpoint, we're fortunate in that we provide, I think, some fun things to talk about, especially at a time of year where people are looking for something new.
Absolutely. With that marketing, how is seaweed sometimes overlooked?
From a marketing standpoint?
Yes, sir.
Well, I hope we're not too much. There's one of the difficult things is we have all these things I've already mentioned. We have wildlife art. We have things for families. We have free exhibits. We have wildlife shows, indoor, outdoors, and it's very difficult to put all that in one advertisement, even if it's a video commercial or or print advertisement.
Right. Sure.
There's a lot going on out here, as you might imagine. So I lost my train of thought there, but trying to get all that into one advertisement is very difficult. So hopefully we're not overlooked, but sometimes we let a piece of fine art or a lifestyle image speak for itself, and let people go to our website and find out more of what seaweed has to offer.
What is that one image that really describes seaweed?
So again, we hope that changes. We do have an image every year, which is our featured painting. And this year, it's by our featured artist, Julia Rogers, and it's of 4 swans. And we try to let that sort of dictate some of what we do from an advertising standpoint or for a design standpoint. But it doesn't always do that. We have incredible hundreds, if not thousands, of incredible images from over the years. Some are more iconic than others, but they originally existed on an original piece of art, and we use those through our advertising. And it's more than likely hanging on someone's wall at home or office somewhere.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Which one of those images describes you as the executive director of your best work at SEWE?
Oh, that's you backed me to a corner there. I think there's some classic sporting dog images that we've used over the years. There's some things that I grew up hunting and fishing, and there are these images that I tell people this all the time. An artist will go to the field and they'll paint something that they've seen or a place that they know. And some of the sporting pursuits or some of the time I've spent outdoors, since I've been working at SEWE, I'll come back and I'll see an image and I'll be like, I think I've been to that place. When in reality, I surely have not. But that's the connection that a art buyer, collector makes with the artist. A lot of the time they see something and it's so familiar, whether they've actually been there or not. It ties into the emotional piece, of someone's lifestyle. And that connection is what facilitates a sale often, and the reason that painting or a piece of sculpture or carving ends up in someone's home.
Yeah. Might be a little silly, complicated question, but what's that new connection to the buyer?
New connection?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think a lot of times it's a new artist, a new personality. Like one of the rare things about the exhibit that we have is there are, again, these 100 wildlife artists that are there, but they're present with their work. So lots of times there'll be a gallery will have a show and it'll exist for a couple of days or a week, and the artist will be there for a little while. But these artists are there all 3 days interacting with the buyers, whether they're serious collectors or they're new buyers. And what you'll see is, again, whether it's an individual piece of work, an entire body of work that drew someone in, or a new artist that someone never met before, and they immediately make a connection. It's lots of times those are friendships, even though there's a financial transaction at the end.
Absolutely. What are those emerging artists that you're keeping your eye on?
There's so many. If you go to seaweed.com and you look at our list of artists, you'll see them. I tell this story all the time. There's a friend of mine, and his name's Ryan Kirby. He's about my age, and I will not disclose that. He's a little bit younger. But we met a long time ago, and he worked as an illustrator, and he was just getting into to these bigger original paintings. And I've been able to watch his work over the years evolve. And get better. He's always been an extraordinary artist, but he gets better and better all the time. And I don't know if it's better with age or experience or what, but he's one that because I still try to think of myself as young. And he's on the younger side of some of these wildlife artists that he's been a lot of fun to watch. His name's Ryan Kirby.
Wow. With being the executive director and being around all of this art, all of these artists, all of this work, do you consider yourself an artist too?
Absolutely not. And I don't even know that it's fair to say that I'm a good judge of art. It's subjective. And that's kind of brings up another point. We try to offer styles, sizes, price points, all this, a variety, so that someone who even has a small interest is going to be able to find something that they're interested in. What pieces range from $500 to $75,000. You don't always know what's going to be here because we select these artists, whether through invitation or through a jury, and they're here, but we haven't always seen their entire body of work before they get here. So that's a really exciting part for the staff that works year round to see this incredible gallery set up over the course of 24 hours and exist in a lively ballroom setting for 3 days.
Absolutely. And what is that process? We've never heard of that. What is the difference between an invitation and this jury that you all look at?
Well, there's some artists that have been with us for a long time, and they're well known, on any scale. And then again, we talk about these emerging artists, and while we keep our eye on other galleries, events, and through word of mouth, our collectors that tell us about these other artists, we still have this jury process that begins actually in June of every year.
Wow.
So really far out, we start looking at applications, and these artists are juried in, and they come to the show, and it's usually a mutually beneficial relationship. They either do well, and we have this great relationship, or they don't find exactly what they're looking for, and go back to the drawing board. But that process is fun. It's also trying on our jury, and the fact that these this is a lot of these artists are full-time artists, so and we don't have room for all the ones that are qualified. So it's sometimes a tough decision, but we hope we make the right ones, and we create this body of work that's now appropriate. It's not the right word, that suits everyone.
Sure. And from, say, June of 2021 to, I would probably say, hypothetically, December, how many applications did you all receive for this year?
We probably received, I would say, over 75 applications for artists, and then for exhibitors, which gets into the other exhibit sites, probably several hundred. So.
Wow, that's amazing. And speaking of going back to the drawing board, let's go back to 2021. Obviously, you all had to cancel SEWE due to COVID, which is still going on right now. And I know you told Layla Gulen on Fox 24 Now that you made a strong effort for an amended event. Let me ask you, what events would have had to be amended, and how?
Well, really, we go based on the protocols that are being set forth by the state, city, or anybody whose jurisdiction we fall under. SEWE has to be permitted on so many levels. So that amended show we really pushed to being mainly outdoors, and it's hard to believe that during that planning process would have been November and December of 20. There's still a lot to be learned. So we balanced a smaller indoor facility with just one outdoor facility, and it just didn't make a sense at the time with the spike. And we know a lot more now, and we're constantly talking to the city and anyone else about our plans, which are evolving. They have to as these cases go up and down. So we certainly don't have it figured out on anybody that does, but we know that we have better plans in place.
Well, absolutely. And so, how much would an amended event would it cost save you all financially?
How much would it cost us?
Yeah, well, how much would an amended event like last year would have saved you all financially?
It's a good question. We have a lot of great corporate partners, and we've had a lot of great support from the state. And some of our corporate partners have said, look, let's roll those sponsorships over to 2022. Some of them said, we know that you need operating support. So there you go. We would have generated revenue from sales of all different kinds during that event, but it also, as you might imagine, costs a lot of money to build an event like that. So, we have an incredible board that's done a really good job of making sure that we stay the course, that we maintain some sort of rainy day fund so that we can operate in case of a catastrophic event like a no-show. But we hope that we don't have to face that again. It was always discussed in terms of fire or earthquake or hurricane that's happened before.
Oh, yes.
But I think you'll see a lot of not-for-profits being more conservative, especially those that are event-based like ours, and saying, hey, we need to keep an eye on this for the future, for when it can flare up and may cause significant damage to your plans.
And let me talk about the action. Like I just mentioned, you just had to cancel the 2021 event. How much money did you all have to refund?
Well, we refunded all the tickets, any ticket purchases and any partnerships that were requested. I don't have that, at my fingertips, but I think we did a really good job of, again, staying the course and being that process. We were very open and honest. We said, hey, we're going to try for this event. And if it doesn't work out, it stinks for all of us. And everybody sort of hopped on board with that approach. So that was great. And we still have a very, liberal refund policy. I mean, right now we're still going to refund tickets out up until February 1st for those that are uneasy, because we don't want anybody here. We don't want any ill will, and we don't want anybody here that doesn't feel comfortable being here. So sort of the same approach. We just, we know that this year we're moving forward and we're really excited about it.
Now, how many people actually called you all and say, hey, we're still going to come anyways for 2021?
The funny thing is, Quintin, is you'll ask some of the hoteliers and restaurants. There are a lot of people that came to town because coming to SEWE weekend, which is always President's Day weekend, is part of their tradition. So there was an influx of folks here that had familiar faces, but I don't have a count on that either.
Oh, no worries. So let's fast forward. When did the intense buildup happen for the 2022 event?
Well, I think we knew that we had to immediately start planning for 2022. I think we all thought that most of this would be totally behind us. And we've seen a lot of positive news. So the ramp up has been consistent, I'd say, with a regular year for us. We didn't want to try to do too much, but we also didn't want to do less than what was expected. So, again, those that come this year are going to see our normal template, a normal schedule for all intents and purposes, and a full show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I asked Herb this for the Bridge Run a couple of months ago, and I want to ask you this question as well. But will you require a vaccine or test requirement to get into some of these events?
So right now, we our reporting on that is going to be January 15th, around January 15th, because we're going to wait and see what the city, and we work with the Gilliard Center, Charleston Place Hotel, the Marriott, two outdoor parks that are under the city's purview. So, and they are all still sort of discussing what those protocols are going to be, and so they may be different. We also have a bus system that at one time was going to require masks and then was not. So we want to give very clear information around that time period. From a organizational standpoint, we do not have any mandates at this time. But we looking over the next couple of weeks, we think some of those might change, and we'll just see. But we're gonna go by those protocols that we have to work under through city and state regulations or any sort of private entity.
So, how many tickets have you sold thus far for this event?
I don't know that. I don't know that off the top of my head either, but there are a lot of them. The corporate partners came back on strong. Individual day tickets sales have been on par, if not exceeding what we saw in 2020. So again, we expect a full SEWE, a full city.
Absolutely. So, when do you actually reach your peak with ticket sales? With ticket sales.
So it's interesting that you ask. We have not in the history of SEWE ever had to cap tickets. And while we don't necessarily anticipate doing that this year, we are taking a look at that. And again, through our discussions with city officials and our other partners, our stakeholders, we'll see if we need to cut those off at some point. But right now, we don't. From a general admission standpoint, now VIP tickets have been sold out for months. Almost all of our special events are sold out. There are still some that are left. We did go down a little bit on numbers there, just through precaution. But general admission, when you think about it from a SEWE standpoint, when the individuals are spread out between Charleston Place, Marion Square, Brittlebank Park, and then a lot of people that are here are also making their way up and down the King Street corridor and seeing other sites while they're in Charleston. We're okay with the number. We're better than okay with the number of people and spread out among the city.
Yeah. Speaking of spreading out, you talk about all of these notable locations here around town. Do you expect SEWE to branch out to other areas of Charleston in the future?
Yes and no. It has to make sense for us. The Peninsula of Charleston is, very convenient for us because it is finite, right? We get incredible support from the town of Mount Pleasant. We have a sculpture exhibit there. We have a lot of friends. We do a great job, and I think they appreciate the fact that we fill the hotels over there as well. But you look at our exhibit sites and how they work together, and they're coordinated by a shuttle system. To extend that over the bridge, creates its own new set of complexities. At the same time, we do want to grow, but grow in a smart way. And I think anybody that's an event of our size, looks as much to improve quality as they do, the experience as much as they do try to grow the numbers. So it's always an option. Again, green space is at a premium. And so, in Mount Pleasant, North Charleston, there are all these great options. But I think, over the next year or two, you'll probably see us just make sure our feet are still sturdy, and get through this show and worry about, some changes for 23 after we knock the dust off for this year.
Absolutely. And I know on your website, obviously you have your continued mission, which is to contribute to the local economy while promoting that is wildlife and nature conservation and preservation that has grown in size and impact each year, making SEWE invaluable to all of South Carolina resources. How do you promote wildlife, nature conservation, and preservation in the era of COVID and social media?
Well, I think that, when we talk about conservation pursuits or conservation organizations, that's what, COVID's done a lot of, if you can say this, and a lot of good for it, because people have gotten outdoors. They appreciate it more. They appreciate the space. Charleston region is extraordinary in the sense that we have, the Francis Marion to the north, we have the Ace Basin to the south, and so we have this incredible amount of green space, parks with unbelievable access, right here at our doorstep. And so while we've been promoting it for years, I think people have really gotten out and found it because they, had the time, or they were forced into, looking at some new outlets. At the same time, hosting the event certainly has become more difficult for all the obvious reasons. And so, if we were looking at it from our seat, we want to continue to do that. We want to keep promoting it. Things ebb and flow. My hope is that people continue to go to our state parks, our national forests, even our local parks, city parks. Again, where we made some efforts to put public sculpture. We want to continue to get people outside. Nature teaches its own lessons and inspires people in its own ways. So if we can get people to find some of these places, the rest of the work is easy.
Oh, absolutely. Where has wildlife, nature conservation, and preservation grown in size and impact here in South Carolina?
Well, I think we live in this incredible time where there's this growth, and the city and the state, the region, has to balance that growth with green space and how we protect our natural resources. And I think they've done a lot of corporate entities and a lot of members of government on all levels have done a really good job of balancing that, because people are coming to. It's part of the reason some of these businesses are moving to South Carolina is because of these great opportunities they have, so that's not something we get into much. We really focus on conservation groups, large or small. We put them on a stage in front of 40,000 people and let people sort of make their own decisions, find their own inspiration. And it's a loose term sometimes if it's a 501c3, whether it's a dog rescue organization or a specific birding project, or we have a partnership with the Audubon Society this year, which we're excited about, or Ducks Unlimited that saves incredible amounts of wetlands. So again, we don't have the resources at the time to focus on each one, but we do put all these organizations somewhat on an equal stage, and we think that we do a lot of good in that promotion.
Which one of South Carolina's resources matches SEWE's continued mission?
Can you repeat that for me one more time, Quintin?
Oh, yes, sir. Which one of South Carolina's natural resources matches SEWE's continued mission?
I don't think you can pick one. I really don't. I mean, I think, again, if you go back to it, if you look at how we can help promote the state parks, if we can take, let's just take the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources that we work with, on so many levels, whether it's an individual project, whether it's talking about the, saving or trying to increase the population of the bob white quail, which has the, conservation story tied in with, hunters that grew up chasing those about. Well, it's where it comes full circle. These folks that have hunted quail all their lives, a lot of them are older and they don't care as much about the pursuit, but they want to see the bird repopulate. And then that gets into, okay, well, we need to make sure we have the right habitat, and you have to save the habitat. So how is the habitat managed? Well, burning. You talk about prescribed fire, and we've got several different organizations that talk about that. So it gets into complexities that are way outside of everything to understand, but they all sort of converge to create this story of conservation that we try to tell in so many different ways.
Oh, absolutely. And I know you talked a lot about lifestyle throughout this particular interview, but what is that lifestyle that SEWE wants to project in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, we talk about the lifestyle as much, in ways that we can incorporate fashion and some of these great corporate partners that we have that help support the event. Whether that's our local friends here at Marilina that produce the Hook and Nomad brands, or Barber, and I'm sure I'm going to forget some. We don't necessarily want to project a specific lifestyle. We want people to be engaged. We want people to learn about wildlife art. We don't want people to learn about conservation organizations. And generally, we want people to have a good time and see Charleston. Those are the things that we really want people to do every year. And so far, we've done a good job of that.
That is amazing. And where do you have your sights on as far as the 2023 festival? I know that's a long way off.
Well, and it's a fair question. Our friend Jack Hanna would come every other year, and his health is not great. So that would be a year where he would return. So we'll look at, what kind of presenter, what kind of educators that we're going to bring in. We'll go down the list of all of our artists and see who we think may want to come back in 23. Usually that's a high number, but we'll see. We'll take a look at exhibit sites, like you mentioned earlier, and say, do you want to change how the show's footprint goes through Charleston or the Charleston region? So, really right after the show, we start looking at these things. And some of them we have to look at, further out, with dock dogs and being on their schedule and things of that nature, incorporating music. So there are a lot of things that stay on our radar year round. And sometimes when we get into the real The short rows of the show here, somebody has a good idea and we can't make it happen for 22, we'll make it happen for 23, or we have to look all the way out to 24. So.
Absolutely. And I know you talked a lot about handcrafted work in this interview. Which one of those works have helped you better understand wildlife art?
I think we talk about paintings. I mean, again, if we talk about the specific paintings, sculptors, carvers that are in the Fine Art Gallery at Charleston Place, I mean, I think I've learned what I like and maybe don't like as much. I do not think that I'm a judge. I'm an event producer, so my skill set, if we can call it that, extends well beyond that one exhibit site. But you find artists, we use these terms, artists and exhibitors, but you find artists all over the show, not just there. I mean, whether it's a wood turner or someone who makes original handcrafted knives, and they make the blade, and they make the handle, and some of these art forms, I don't want to say that they're dying, but there are not as many people doing it anymore, and so it's really incredible to see some of the work that folks can do either in their spare time or when some of them are full time.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, John Powell with Southeastern Wildlife Exposition, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks, Quintin.
Thank you.